Hello, I'm Sarah. This is Hardcover Hearts, and I'm here with a tag video, even though it's not Tag Tuesday. You all may have seen that I don't really do these very often, but this is really, really special. This is the Charlie book tag, and it is in honor of our dear friend, BookTube's own Charles Heathcoate. And today is his 30th birthday. So I was absolutely delighted when Charlie Brooks reached out and asked me if I would participate in the book tag and do a video. And I thought, absolutely, cannot think of a better way to celebrate from afar. So happy birthday, Charlie. This one's for you. But before we get into that, before we get into the tag itself, I wanted to share a little bit of backstory about my relationship with Charlie. Like many of you, I've been following Charlie for, I think maybe about 4 years, if not a little longer. And he's just such a nice guy. I really have enjoyed his wool gathering videos where he will sit in his car and ponder life. I love hearing about the progress that he's making in his books because he is an author. I will put links to his books below should you want to participate in celebrating his birthday by buying a book or two, maybe. And also his reviews. He is a really astute reader. He is smart. He reads as a writer, but also as somebody who really enjoys literature. And we have so many of the similarities in terms of the types of books that we like. So I'm always looking out for his reviews, always want to know what he thinks about something because I learned something from what he says and how he views these books. He actually participated in a few of my group reads, which was an absolute joy. And then he and I had an opportunity to read together for our first buddy read. Now, I knew that he was a fan of this author, and I hadn't read anything by him. This is David Mitchell's Utopia Avenue. And so I really expected to go into this book where he would do some heavy lifting for me in kind of explaining some of the David Mitchellisms that appeared. Ironically, though, this book didn't have very many of those because this is kind of like, I guess, the most non-David Mitchell book that he's done. So I was actually able to step and take a little bit of it because there's a huge section in San Francisco. So I was able to relate some history, some color commentary about how accurate the depiction was, and then some other stories to kind of round it out about San Francisco. So that was incredibly fun and really enjoyed that. And then just recently, my husband and I were traveling in Europe and we were able to stop in Manchester. I had plans to meet up with Leo of A Little Book Life, and Leo and I realized within a day before we were set to meet that Charlie actually lived near Manchester. We thought he was way in a different location, way more north. So we had a confab and said, oh no, we have to invite him. We have to see him. And so luckily he was actually free and agreed and jumped on the train and came and met us. And we spent just a fabulous, wonderful day together in Manchester, strolling around, looking at the sights, going to bookstores, going to the famous library. It was a magnificent day. And he is just as charming, funny, kind, smart as you would expect as you see on the videos. So again, delighted to be participating in this. So let's get into the tag itself now. And what I love about this is if you don't know anything about Charlie, you're going to learn something about him through the way that Charlie Brooks set it up. So well done. So the first prompt, I'm reading off my phone here. The first prompt is, Charlie is a name of the game. Which is your favorite book, either by a Charles Charlie or featuring a Charles or Charlie? So I need to pick up this big, huge mammoth thing. This is Charles Dickens. This is this gorgeous Folio Society edition I got. And this is Bleak House. Leo of Leo's Little Book Life and I read this together for last Victober. And I think this one might be my favorite of Dickens' work, specifically because it has all of the Dickensian vibe and, the multitude of people, but the social commentary and the political commentary about what the judicial system was doing to people, and how people got sucked into these legal cases that just never ended but lined the pockets of the lawyer class was phenomenal. I really, really loved it. So that was a fantastic book. And yeah, I expect to see a lot of Charles Dickens in this tag. Number 2, Our Doris, which aside is one of the books that Charlie wrote. A book you loved featuring a protagonist over 50 years of age. So this is one of the things that Charlie and I have in common is I love an old protagonist, especially an old woman protagonist. One of my favorite books with an old woman is this one right here. Drive Your Plow Over the Bones of the Dead by Olga Tatarchuk. And this was, I think it was translated by Antonia Lloyd-Jones. This book is magnificent. It is a mystery set in Poland, Czechoslovakian border. And we have an old woman who is very independent, an iconoclast. She does exactly what she wants. She's incredibly intelligent, has a passion project that she works on with a friend of hers, and is pulled into a mystery that she's convinced of a theory on who did it, and no one's listening to her. The writing is amazing. It's so surprising. I still think of Janina, the main character. This was just a phenomenal read. 3, An Heir to Murder, another one of Charlie's books. So this is a favorite crime mystery book. So I've talked many times about this book, but I'm going to do it again because it's so good. This is Dorothy L. Sayers' Gaudy Night. So when I talk about this book, I always say that it is really good to come into this with having read the arc of Dorothy L. Sayers' introduction of Harriet Vane. And Harriet Vane is fundamentally by hands down my favorite character in literature, my favorite woman character. We meet her in Strong Poison. And this series is really the Lord Peter Wimsey series. But for me, Harriet Vane steals the show. So the arc is really made up of Strong Poison, Have His Carcass, then it's Gaudy Nights. And I think it's important to read those because a lot of the relationship between the two of them plays out here in interesting ways. But if you don't have that backstory, you're going to miss so much of the actual joy of the subtleties of their conversations, of their budding romance. So really, I think it's good to have read into it, at least those 2 books ahead. But this is by far, I think, a phenomenal book. And it's really a literary mystery. It's very light on the mystery. Nobody dies, but there is the thread of it. The story, I guess I should mention, is Harriet Vane is a writer of mysteries. She's very, very well known, and she's been asked by her former college at Oxford to come back to help them because they're getting a bunch of poison pen letters. And as a women's college in Oxford, it's very important that their reputation is spotless and above board at all times. And so this type of thing could be very scandalous and devastating for a women's college that's really struggling to be seen and recognized amongst the male colleges. And so she goes and she sees the path not taken because she used to be a scholar and that could have been an opportunity for her to continue. But she needs must and she needed to earn her pay and she left and became a writer with some disastrous consequences, as you see in the earlier books. But this is so feminist. It's so thoughtful about women and their careers in academia and or in the real world. In academia, they're cloistered, almost protected. In the real world, you're on your own. I love it, and I think it's a fantastic, fantastic book. Number 4, Chocolat, a book by one of your favorite authors. So I am going to pick this book because number 1, I love it. Number 2, it's by an author that I've just recently become obsessed with, and I'm reading a ton of their work. And number 3, I know for a fact that Charlie was able to purchase at a ridiculously amazing price an entire set of the Folio Society edition of this author. This is Anthony Trollope, and the book is Can You Forgive Her?, the first in the Palliser series. And so I have spoken very, very highly of this, and I know that it's something that he is looking forward to getting into shortly. I think he's in the Barchester series now, but I cannot wait to hear his thoughts about the Palliser series because he does really great reviews. So come on, get to it. Number 5, Reading is Fundamental, a book you think everyone should read. So I tend to not be everyone should read this book because I think we bring so much of ourselves to reading, and reading is so subjective, and you just never know what's going to fit another person. Hence why BookTube, I think, exists, because all of our tastes are so diverse and wide, and it's helpful to see other people and what they like and think. But this is one that I actually lead a group read of every single year on the first of the year, because it's such a book lover's book. It's such a book about opportunities, missed chances, about prioritization, about kindness, community. And it always goes so far in making me grateful and reminding me of the things that matter to me, which is literature and community. And this book is 84 Charing Cross Road by Helene Hanff, which I think Charlie participated in this year's reading of it. So this is, if I had to say anything, it would be this. Now, this is not a novel. This is actually an epistolary book that actually transcribes the communications between a woman in New York City right after the war, and a bookshop on Charing Cross Road, which is right next to Foyle's. The shop used to be. It's no longer there, but there's one of those gorgeous plaques honoring where it used to be. But they start a communication and a conversation, and it moves into this really lovely friendship between these two people who really love literature, and then some others sprinkled in. So cannot speak more highly. It is something that I think book lovers would enjoy, because there's so much richness about books in here, and the act of and the joy we get in reading. Number 6, The Tardis, a book you wish you could go back in time and tell yourself to stay away from. I knew exactly which one I would choose. And this one I was so offended by, I was so angry about it, that and not just the book, but also the press surrounding it and all the publicity and the swirl, that I did a video that I'll put a link to below. This is Lisa Taddeo's 3 Women. I've said everything that I need to say about that book in that video, so I'm just going to leave it there so I don't get a bad taste in my mouth as we're celebrating Charlie's Day. Number 7, Victoria Wood, a book that made you laugh. So I don't normally like humorous books. Humor is really subjective, and sometimes it's I can chuckle, but it's rare that I find a book that makes me guffaw and like tears and trying to catch my breath because I'm laughing so hard. And the last time that happened to me was reading Me Talk Pretty one day by David Sedaris. I'll never forget, I was working and someone had left the book. And I picked it up, and I was standing in a place where I was visible by the public, but I wasn't really, there was nothing for me to do. So I had it kind of under a divider, and I was reading it. And if someone was looking at me, I would have looked insane because I could not get myself composed. I was howling with laughter. I mean, I think I was like throwing my head back. Tears were practically coming out of my eyes. And you know, when you try to hold stuff like that in, it actually makes it worse. It was that type of thing. And I love the fact that it was like these small little stories, little funny stories throughout. And that still is kind of the pinnacle of a humorous book for me. Number 8, So Sally. Sally being his little dog, a book featuring your favorite pet or animal. So I had to go back in time, but I remembered this because I just went to visit a memorial to this character. And this is Paddington Bear. And so, of course, the book is A Bear Called Paddington by Michael Bond. And I actually remember being in London during the time when Michael Bond passed, and the tribute that people and the outpouring of love that people put to the statue that's in Paddington Station, which is one of my favorite statues. I always, whenever I'm in Paddington Station, I always go in and kind of do a rub Paddington's nose. I have a photo of me sitting with him this last trip. But it's just a warm, delightful, charming, sweet, like everything you want, like from a book of when you were a child. So that one is my favorite. Next, un libro o un libro tradotto che amo ancora. And this is a favorite book or a favorite translated book that you want to read. So I have 2. And I think Charlie's going to be joining me for one of these reads, I think. I'm doing a group read of, the first one is Tomb of Sand. This is by Gitanjali Shri and translated by Daisy Rockwell. This just won the Booker International, and I'll be leading a group read of this for next month. If you are so interested, I'll put a link to the video where I talk about how to sign up and and how I generally run them if you're so inclined. And then the other one is Olga Tatarchuk from our previous book. And this is the Books of Jacob. And this was translated by Jennifer Croft. And this is a nice, big, heavy one. She won the Nobel Prize for Literature. I think this was maybe in the shortlist for the Booker International. But just, you know, Olga Tatarchuk is such an interesting writer. So really excited to, with a wonderful, smart group of people, dig into both of those. And then number 10, Age UK, a charity shop book bargain you adored. Ironically, I found this book in a charity shop. This is 84 Charing Cross Road, a book that I previously showed you. The copy I showed you before, this one, was a gift to me, and this is signed by Helene Hanff, and I adore it so much. And this is the copy that I actually read every year. But this one I was delighted to find. And when I opened it up, this sweet little post-it existed. It says, Elaine, read on, and you'll see why I opted to get this copy from the Green Apple Books, Ruth. So the fact that it's a gift from one woman to another, from one of my favorite bookstores in San Francisco, just made me really, really happy. And that I found it for $1. Yay. So that's it. I will suggest that if you know and adore Charlie like we do, and you would like to try this tag, please, please do. There's no expiration date on it. You can always say happy birthday to someone whenever. And thank you so much for watching. I hope, Charlie, that you have an amazing birthday today. And for all the rest of you, an amazing day as well. Thanks for watching, and we'll talk to you soon.